The Sun Egg by Elsa Beskow. There was once a small elf who lived in a hollow tree in the woods. She loved dancing. In the spring, she danced a welcome back sun dance. In the autumn, a swirly yellow leaves dance. And in the winter, a falling snow dance. She would dance until she was so tired that she would crawl into her tree and fall asleep. In the summer, there was so much happening and so many interesting, funny things to watch that she didn't have as much time for dancing. All the birds in the woods were her friends. If she saw an egg that had fallen out of its nest lying on the moss, she would carry it back up to the mother bird as quickly as she could. The birds were all very fond of her, and they sang her the most beautiful songs whenever she was near. One day she was exploring in the wood. She saw something large, round, and yellow lying on the ground. What a big egg, she thought. Where has this come from, I wonder? She looked up and saw a bright hole in the clouds overhead. I know, she said. The sun has dropped an egg and she can't see it because the cloud is in her way. Then she ran off straight away to tell her friend Larch all about it. Larch was lying on a branch. He was always playing tricks on people, and when he saw her, he threw down a fir cone, and it tripped her up. Ouch, she said, picking herself up. I'll tell Crooked Root if you do that again. Crooked Root was the old gnome in charge of the woods, and he was the only person that Larch really respected. I'm sorry, he said. Have you come to play? Well, I have a secret, she said. Larch jumped down from his tree and ran after her. He picked up a grass straw and a pointed stick to give her a drink of fresh birch sap because he wanted to make up to her for throwing the fir cone. He said, I'm excited about your secret. I'm sorry that I threw a fir cone at you. Here, have some delicious sap. She thought. The elf decided to go straight to Happy Frog, who lived by the lake. Happy Frog laughed at everything. She had a little restaurant, which was also called the Happy Frog. When the elf came running up, a snail and a lizard were having lunch, and Happy Frog's friend, Anxious Frog, was waiting to be served. Would you like fresh bleak row or chopped pondweed? Asked Happy Frog. Or would you rather have some plantain seeds? Oh, no, thank you. I couldn't eat a thing. I've already had a whole wood sorrel leaf this morning, said the elf. But I do have some very important news, said the elf. The sun has laid an egg, and it has fallen into our wood. Come, look. Happy Frog thought this was so funny that she collapsed into giggles and almost choked. Anxious Frog had to slap her on the back to help. The elf ran to show the way, and the others followed. Larch came running up with his friend, the squirrel. They were all very surprised and not a little bit puzzled when they saw the elf's egg. Just think, said the elf. If it hatches out soon, we'll have our own sun shining down here in the woods. I certainly hope not, said the owl, peering down from the tree. I would have to move. To-wit-to-hoo. It'll be very hot in the middle, said Larch. The sun has a fire inside, you know. Just then, old Crooked Root came hobbling up. What's going on here? He asked. It's a sun egg, said Larch. Twit-to-hoo, the wood's going up in flames soon, said the owl. We must stop this straight away, said Crooked Root. The best thing would be to, said Happy Frog. She meant to say that it ought to hatch out in the stream, but when she thought about how funny it would look hissing under the water, she couldn't stop laughing. Silly Happy Frog. Nothing to laugh at, said Crooked Root. Everyone lend a hand. We'll roll the egg down to the water. It's a wonderful idea. The shell isn't even warm, said the lizard, sniffing around it gingerly. Hurrah! Shouted Larch. It isn't an egg, it's a football. And then he gave it a kick. Ouch! Don't kick my sun egg, you'll hurt the sun chick, cried the elf. But Crooked Root had already grabbed Larch by the ear. If you touch that sun egg again, you'll get what's for, he said. Suddenly the squirrel bit off a piece of shell and scurried up the tree with it. Ugh, he said, this tastes horrible. Do be careful with my sun egg, cried the elf. And then a finch heard her and came flying up to see what was the matter. Listen, said the chaffinch, this isn't a sun egg. It's a kind of sun fruit, and it's called an orange. You see hundreds of them, so I hear, in the sunny countries where some of us fly during the winter. There is as many of them as you can count on a fir tree. They have the most lovely yellow juice inside of them. Juice, did you say? Cried Larch, and he darted behind the yellow ball. He made a hole in the skin with a sharp, pointed stick, but in his straw and sucked. Oh, this is good, he said, and he licked his lips. I've never tasted anything so delicious. What have you done? Shouted Crooked Root. Larch quickly passed his straw to the old gnome so he could have a taste too. Then he got straws for all the others, and soon they were all standing around the great ball sucking and saying, Oh my, how lovely. Happy Frog had less than anyone else because Larch tickled her ribs and the juice went right down the wrong way and squirted out her nose. When she had finished laughing, she said, Listen here, little elf, you can eat free for a whole year if you let me have the juice. I want to take it to my restaurant. At that moment, a huge black crow came flying past, flapping his wings and cawing loudly. Everyone got quite frightened. Suddenly, he swooped down and snatched the orange in his claws and flew off with it to his nest. The baby crow opened up their beak wide, but the crow was too greedy to let them have any. He just swallowed the whole orange, but it did get stuck in his throat. Afterwards, his neck was so sore that he had to have a bandage on it all summer long. It's a good lesson to never grab from friends, to always think before you act. The little elf burst into tears when she saw that the crow disappeared with her orange. Oh, don't cry, little elf, said the mistle thrush. If you like, you can come with me this autumn to the sunny southern country where the ripe yellow oranges hang on trees. You are so light, you could easily ride on my back. Then, when she heard this, the elf's face lit up and she danced all through the wood singing, I'm going to the land of the sun. I'm going to the land of the sun. When autumn came, the elf did go to the land of the sun with the mistle thrush. She ran about happily in the sunshine, and soon she was nearly as good of a friend with the butterflies there as she was with the ones in her own wood back home. Whenever she was hungry, she stuck a straw into a big orange and took a drink of fresh juice. But the lemons were much too sour, so she never drank from them. So, if one day you find an orange that's a bit dry, don't get too cross. Perhaps the elf has been drinking from it, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind if she had a sip or two of your juice. Although the elf loved the warm southern country, she would say to the sun nearly every day, Sun, please hurry up and shine down on the woods at home, so that spring will be there again soon. Because when spring came, she was going to go back home with the mistle thrush. She had promised to return because many of the wood bulbs would not come out unless she was there to dance her welcome back sun dance. Crooked Root and Larch were longing to see her. Again and again they would go to see if the mistle thrush had returned, and Crooked Root would say, Don't be silly. Of course the mistle thrush won't come back in the middle of winter. Look, there's snow all around. But even when the snow was on the ground, Larch would look up just the same, to see if his friend had returned. When at last the elf did come home, everyone was so pleased that they ran around her laughing and turning somersaults. But this whole story really began a long time before, when a small boy called Danny went looking for wild strawberries in the wood and dropped an orange out of his picnic box. Stars and moon and sun. And now my story's done. But I have an idea. What if you had an orange in your home? And if you don't now, maybe you will in a week or two. You could grab a straw and stick your straw right in and see what happened. See if you could find some sweet orange juice. You could also try it with a lemon or a lime and see how that tastes. You could try this with a grapefruit as well. Any citrus has soft flesh inside full of juice. You could also peel it back and squeeze the juice out and try and make your own cup of orange juice. I do hope you enjoy. Goodbye, my friends.